Hi, my name is Dr. Swarnabha Roy, and I'll be talking about all the different kinds of reabsorptions of salt and water that takes place at the proximal convoluted tubule, which is also known as the PCT of the kidney. And I'll talk about various pumps that are present in the PCT and the diuretic drugs. What's the mechanism of action of diuretic drugs? So the keywords are sodium potassium pump, glucose, bicarbonate, PCT pumps, and the diuretic drugs. Now this is the first part of the lecture. The second part we'll talk about the different kinds of secretions and absorptions in the loop of Henle, and in the last part we'll talk about the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. Now, first let's briefly talk about the different parts of the kidney. Now, the kidney has two parts, the outer cortex and the inner medulla. And as you can see, this is the nephron, and the nephron is kind of distributed between the cortex and the medulla. Now, most part of the nephron lies in the cortex. Just 10% of the nephron, which includes the loop of Henle, it is present in the medulla, but the rest part lies in the outer cortex. Now, as you can see that this blue circle, that's the proximal convoluted tubule, which we are going to talk about here. Now, and the first part is this Bowman's capsule, and the Bowman's capsule has a tuft of blood capillaries, and this is known as the glomerulus. This is where the initial filtering of the urine takes place. So blood comes inside the glomerulus and it's filtered. The urine is filtered out. Now, this initial filtrate has a lot of steps which are required by the body, and those things are reabsorbed. Most of that is reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. Then we have the second part, that red box, and this is known as the Henle's loop, or it's also known as the loop of Henle. And then we have the final last part, which is the distal convoluted tubule. Again, you see that the blue circle. Now, at the proximal convoluted tubule, the PCT, different kinds of things are happening. Now, we have complete reabsorption of certain things which are passed out by the Bowman's capsule or the glomerulus. They are completely taken back. It means 100% reabsorption of stuffs, and then we have near complete reabsorption. Now, that means 80%, 90% of these stuffs, these ions, these metabolites, which are given by the glomerulus, they are taken back. 80-90% of it's taken back. And then we have the secretion. Toxic substances are secreted out into the urine, and that's happening at the PCT. Now, under the complete reabsorption column, we have glucose. Glucose is a very important metabolite, and it's a very important substance, and it's required for energy production. So whatever glucose is given out by the initial glomerular filtrate, that's 100% of that is reabsorbed at the PCT. And then we have amino acids. Amino acids are very important for the body, and you know that amino acids are required. One of the basic things, one of the basic functions where amino acids are required is protein synthesis. During the process of translation, the tRNA brings the amino acids and how the polypeptide chain is formed. So amino acids are very vital for the human body. So 100% of amino acids which are given out, whatever amino acid passes out via the glomerulus, that's taken back in the PCT. Now, one thing, just an offshoot, you can understand that the Bowman's capsule is lined by cells called the podocytes, and these podocytes act as a filter. So things in the blood, the water part in the blood, passes into the proximal convoluted tubule via these podocytes. So coming back to the near complete reabsorption, water, 80% of water that's given out by the glomerulus is taken back, and that happens, most of it happens in the PCT. And then we have sodium ion is taken back, bicarbonate ion is taken back, 80-90% of bicarbonate is taken back, and then 2/3 of the potassium ion is reabsorbed at the PCT. Stuffs which are secreted are obviously toxic substances like ammonia. That's not required by the body. Ammonia is very toxic, so it's secreted out and not reabsorbed back. Now, so certain important things which we need to know about the PCT are that the glomerular filtrate, it contains substances the body still needs. Just because it escapes the glomerulus and enters the PCT does not mean that that filtrate does not have any important things. A lot of things, like as I mentioned, glucose, amino acids, bicarbonate ions, sodium, these things are required by the body. It's like you can call it, it's like an accident. It just passes out during the glomerular filtration, but the body realizes that, oh my God, I need those things back, so those are taken back. So that's what I mean, that it contains substances that the body still needs. And then most of this selective reabsorption occurs in the PCT. That's the important hub where the taking back process is happening. Now, the cells which line the PCT, the epithelial cells, these cells are very special kind of cells. These cells have projections. They're like finger-like projections present in these epithelial cells, and these finger-like projections are called the microvilli. And the reason why they are projected, or they're like finger-like, is to increase the surface area of reabsorption. Okay, so if something which is extended, which is spread out, that the surface area is more, and that helps in reabsorption. So these are the epithelial cells that line the PCT, and you can see that the microvilli are the finger-like projections, which actually are finger-like because that increases the surface area of absorption. If this would have been straight, then the surface area of reabsorption would have been less. Now, glucose and salt are absorbed by active transport. Okay, active, that means it requires energy in the form of ATP. And then we have water that is reabsorbed by osmosis. Now, osmosis, it doesn't require ATP, it doesn't require energy. Osmosis happens when there's flow of water from an area of lower concentration of solute to an area of higher concentration of solute. So it's totally concentration dependent movement of water. There's no energy required, there's no ATP required for that process. So water uses osmosis to be reabsorbed. So as I said, 80% of water is reabsorbed, leaving behind 20% that is passed onto the loop of Henle. So 80% water is taken back at the PCT. Now let's go into deeper mechanisms of what's happening in the PCT. So before that, we need to know the different sides of the nephron. So we can see that this is the lumen side. Now what I mean by the lumen side is the tubular side where the urine is made and it's passed out of the body. And then we have the tubular epithelial cells, and as I said, that these are the cells which have the microvilli, which increases the surface area. This is where all the absorption takes place. And then we have the right side, which is the interstitium, which means that the blood capillaries are present on this side, and whatever substances are being absorbed by the epithelial cells, that ultimately passes into the blood capillaries to be taken back by the body, to be taken back by the circulatory system of the body. So there it shows the blood vessels, and this pop-up picture in this picture, you can see that how we have the glomerulus, the tuft of capillaries called the glomerulus, then we have the Bowman's capsule, and then this entire nephron, different parts of the nephron. The most important thing are these capillaries that are present, and these are known as the vasa recta, and they are present over the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, and the purpose of these overlying capillaries are to reabsorb stuffs back. So basically, this is what is this. You see that thing? That is what takes back all the substances which are still required by the body, for example, glucose, like amino acids. Now, so first, sodium. As I said, it's an important substance that the body needs to be taken back. So sodium is taken inside, is reabsorbed by the epithelial cells, and also glucose is taken in, and this pump is called the sodium glucose co-transporter. Okay, so, and this sodium which is taken in by the epithelial cells from the lumen side, that sodium gets into the interstitium side in exchange of a potassium ion. Potassium ion moves inside the epithelial cell. And this pump here, this is an ATPase pump. Okay, the ATPase is a special kind of enzyme, and it utilizes ATP to get energy to transfer ions at different directions. Now, as I said, glucose is also absorbed into the blood vessel, and amino acids here is also absorbed in the blood vessels from the lumen side, because these are stuffs which are completely absorbed. Now, inside the epithelial cell, we have tons of carbon dioxide and lots of water. So plenty of water and plenty of carbon dioxide. And these, they combine with each other with the help of a special enzyme which is known as the carbonic anhydrase, which is abbreviated as Ca, and it forms carbonic acid, H2CO3. Now, this carbonic acid then splits up into bicarbonate ion, and as I said before, that the bicarbonate ion is taken back by the blood vessels because it's required. So it's broken down into bicarbonate ion and H plus ion. The bicarbonate is taken inside, reabsorbed by the blood vessels. This H plus, with the help of this pump, which is called the sodium hydrogen pump, this escapes into the lumen side, and where it combines with another bicarbonate ion that is present in the lumen side, and with the help of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase Ca, it forms another carbonic acid. And again, as I said, this going out of the hydrogen ion into the lumen happens in exchange of a sodium ion that's being absorbed. So this is actually the purpose, that the hydrogen is kicked out and a sodium, which is important, is taken in. And this pump is called the sodium hydrogen pump. Now, also we have bases, acids, bases. So bases are excreted into the lumen side by this pump, which is called the chloride base pump. And chloride ion, which is essential, is taken inside into the epithelial cells and into the blood cells. And it's called the base chloride pump. And you can see that water is absorbed, and water is absorbed in the PCT, not by the epithelial cells, but it passes through the space which is in between two epithelial cells. So it's kind of a special way the water actually enters. And as I said, water doesn't require any kind of pump, right? It's by the process of osmosis, so that there is higher concentration of solute in the epithelial cells, and the water moves from a region of lower concentration of solute, which is the lumen side, to a higher concentration of solute, which is the epithelial cell, and finally water is reabsorbed back by the body by the process of osmosis. Now, we can talk about the diuretic drugs. Okay, why diuretic drugs are prescribed to patients. Now, patients having hypertension. Okay, um, so these patients are given diuretic drugs, and we have these are the zolamide classes. So we have the acetazolamide and the dorzolamide diuretic drugs. Now, so a patient who has a lot of hypertension, okay, a lot of blood pressure, the idea is to reduce the volume of liquid passing through this blood vessel. Okay, so if you reduce the volume of the liquid, that will reduce the hypertension. So body needs to lose water. You have to suck away water from the blood vessel into the lumen side so that the kidney can flush away the water out of your body. And when you reduce the volume of the liquid water inside the blood vessel, you reduce hypertension, you reduce blood pressure. So that's the purpose of these diuretic drugs. So what these drugs do is they block carbonic anhydrase. So this circle actually should be here. So there should be another circle here because it blocks the carbonic anhydrase at these two places. So what happens when the carbonic anhydrase is blocked? What's happening? The production of hydrogen is stopped. And when there is no hydrogen, the hydrogen is not able to leave to the lumen side. And if hydrogen does not leave, so the sodium is not absorbed. So what happens eventually, once you block carbonic anhydrase, there is accumulation, there is gathering of sodium ion in the lumen side. You're not letting sodium ion inside because you're blocking the exit of hydrogen ion because you're blocking Ca. So as sodium starts getting accumulated, as the sodium ion concentration starts increasing in the lumen side, what happens? The concentration of solute is increasing. Now, as you know, that water, it flows from an area of low solute concentration to a higher solute concentration. So now the whole thing is switched. Before, the inside had a higher solute concentration. Once you treat the patient with this drug, once you block this sodium potassium pump, once you block the exit of hydrogen and the entry of the sodium, this sodium ion concentration keeps increasing in the lumen side. So a point comes when the solute concentration of the lumen is higher than the epithelial cell. Water starts flowing out from the blood capillaries out in the lumen. And this patient who's treated with the diuretic drug, they keep peeing now because you have a lot of pee being formed because a lot of water is getting flushed out of the body. So but this process ultimately reduces the volume of liquid that is flowing in the blood vessels. When the volume of liquid is reduced, it reduces the hypertension. So people who have hypertension, they are given these drugs. Okay, and even when you have edema, and edema means swelling with the help of water. When water moves inside the blood vessel, you have, let's say, there's sometimes you have an injury, and that causes an edema formation. There's a lot of fluid in your blood vessels. Now, these kind of patients who have edema, you prescribe them with these diuretic drugs because, again, the diuretic drug is going to block this sodium hydrogen pump and then increase the solute concentration that will cause the movement of water from a region of low solute concentration to a higher solute, which is the lumen at this time, and the body will lose water. So uses of diuretic drugs is help body get rid of unneeded water and salt, thus lowering the high blood pressure. And they are prescribed for other things also, even a lot of patients with heart problems and heart failure. Patients with kidney problems, liver problems, with glaucoma. Now, all these patients are also prescribed the diuretic drugs. Now, as I said, this is the first part of the lecture. In my second part, which is also published at YouTube, you can see the mechanism that's happening in the Henle's loop and mechanisms happening at the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts. I hope this presentation was helpful, and please visit my website, which is here, www.swarnavaroyphd.com, and I help students with their assignments. I conduct regular lecture at Skype, and you can send me your PowerPoint slides if you have hard time understanding your course materials. I am going to explain to you all the slides, and I can guarantee you good grades, which many of my students have received. You can send your PowerPoint slides, you can send your assignments. I can do assignments for you. I even help during examinations. So all the best. Bye bye.